My dad canceled my ticket and texted, "Walk home." I laughed and replied, "You sure?" My dad suddenly became nervous. 5 minutes later, they rushed back to pick me up, but they were too late. My name is Natalie Bennett. I am 32, and the message reached me beside an airline kiosk at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. My confirmation had vanished. The agent checked twice and told me the ticket had been canceled online less than an hour earlier by the person who booked it. My father had dropped me at another entrance, smiling as if nothing was wrong. I called my parents, brother, and sister. Nobody answered. Then his text appeared. "Walk home." Before I tell you why one canceled ticket sent 4 people racing back to the airport, tell me where you are watching from and what the weather is like there today. I want to see how far this story travels. I checked the vacation confirmation still under my name, laughed once, and typed, "You sure?" 5 minutes later, the family SUV returned. They searched the curb and called repeatedly. By then, I was watching their names flash across my screen from the back seat of a rideshare. By the time my rideshare reached the highway, my father had called 11 times. I ignored every call and opened the booking app instead. The Carmel rental house, the 7-seat SUV, and the prepaid coastal tour were all confirmed under my account. I canceled the house and vehicle while they were still within the refundable window. The tour allowed credit, so I moved that amount back to my travel balance. I did not touch their airline tickets. I did not take money from anyone. I simply removed the reservations I had personally made and paid for. Then I called my aunt, Barbara Mercer. She answered on the second ring. "Did David cancel your ticket because you refused to guarantee that expansion loan?" That question told me the airport stunt had not been spontaneous. My father, David Bennett, owned a commercial sign installation company near Tacoma. 2 weeks earlier, he had asked me to co-sign a high-interest loan for a new fabrication machine and another service truck. The payment exceeded my mortgage. His company already carried uneven cash flow, and the lender required my income because his books could not support the debt. I had reviewed the terms, explained the risk, and said no. Apparently, he decided I needed to be punished. I worked as a senior risk analyst for a marine insurance firm in Seattle. My job was to identify expensive problems before they became disasters. I had built a stable career, saved carefully, and lived below my means. My family treated that stability as if it were a shared utility they could access whenever they wanted. For 4 years, I had been helping them quietly. I paid part of my younger sister Amanda's respiratory therapy tuition directly to her college. I covered the monthly payment on the box truck used by my father's installation crews. I negotiated an installment arrangement with Pierce County after my parents fell behind on property taxes, then paid the first several installments myself. I placed a refundable deposit on tools, battery systems, and a compact service van for my brother Jason's planned mobile bicycle repair business. The Monterey trip had been the largest recent expense. My mother Karen was turning 60, and everyone promised the vacation would be a real family celebration. I paid for most of the rental house, the destination vehicle, and several activities. My father purchased the airline tickets through a family booking so we could sit together. I reimbursed him for my seat the same day. Barbara exhaled slowly when I explained what had happened. Then she told me David had complained that I needed to remember who helped me get where I am. He had said I was becoming arrogant because I questioned his loan. He also claimed that withholding family warmth would make me cooperative. I opened my banking app before she finished. The tuition transfer scheduled for the following month was voluntary, so I canceled it. The automatic transfer for the company truck was voluntary, so I stopped it. Future property tax contributions were gifts, so I removed them. Jason's equipment deposit was refundable and mine, so I requested its return. I left completed payments alone. I left accounts that were not mine alone. I took nothing back from anyone. Next, I saved screenshots of the canceled airline booking, my reimbursement receipt, and David's walk home message. I forwarded copies to an email folder and to Barbara. My father finally left a voicemail. His voice had lost the confidence from the text. Natalie, this was supposed to make you less controlling. You always act like paying for something means you run the family. Restore the reservations and we can talk when you get here. My mother's message arrived 1 minute later. She did not ask where I was. She did not ask whether I was safe. She asked me to restore the house before their flight departed. I replied once. No, they boarded anyway. David apparently believed he could replace everything after landing. He could not. Carmel lodging on short notice cost several times what I had paid months earlier. The available rental vehicles were either too small or priced beyond what he was willing to spend. They stayed one night at an airport hotel near San Jose, argued through dinner, and flew back to Washington the next morning. When they landed, David sent a family group message saying I had ruined Karen's birthday by having an emotional outburst over a harmless joke. I did not answer immediately. I watched their flight status change to arrived, closed the app, and waited. They were back in Seattle with their luggage, their anger, and no understanding yet of what else had been canceled. The first payment notice arrived 3 days after they came home. Amanda texted me a screenshot from her college portal showing that the final installment for her respiratory therapy program had not been received. You must have entered the wrong date, she wrote. Can you fix it today? Registration closes Friday. There was no greeting and no mention of the airport. I did not enter the wrong date, I replied. I ended all voluntary family payments. She called immediately. She insisted she had not canceled my ticket. I know, I said. Dad did. My question is why you accepted a vacation after learning I had been deliberately excluded. Silence answered first. Then she admitted David had told everyone the canceled ticket would be good for Natalie because I needed to be humbled. Amanda said she felt uncomfortable, but she had already arranged time away from clinical training. She needed my tuition payment, so she stayed quiet rather than risk angering him. You knew I was stranded on purpose, I said, and you expected me to keep paying anyway. I thought you would cool down. David had promised all of them that I always forgave the family eventually. Amanda said delaying graduation would damage her future. I told her to contact the college's financial aid office, ask about federal aid, emergency grants, hospital sponsorships, and a payment plan. She said applications would take time. I said it remained her responsibility. I did not pay. I reminded her that I had never signed an agreement guaranteeing the program. I had offered help because I wanted her to begin her career without panic, not because I accepted permanent responsibility for deadlines. Amanda replied that family promises should count without paperwork. I told her promises also depend on honest conduct. She called that conditional love. I called it the end of an arrangement she had knowingly taken for granted. Jason called that afternoon. His equipment supplier had notified him that the reservation for specialized bicycle tools, portable batteries, and a compact service van would expire unless he completed the purchase. The refunded deposit had returned to my card. You promised to help me launch, he said. I promised before you helped leave me at an airport. Dad planned it. I heard you laughing in the background of his voicemail. Jason stopped denying involvement. I reminded him that the deposit was my money, the agreement was informal, and he had not invested the remaining capital. I ended the call before anger turned into an argument he could later misquote. The box truck lender contacted his company after the automatic payment failed to arrive. He called me from the dealership. "We have installation scheduled," he said. "If they take this truck, I lose current jobs." "The truck belongs to Bennett Sign Systems," I replied. "It never belonged to me." "You benefited from this family. Successful children help their parents. Why did a successful daughter deserve to be abandoned at an airport?" He said I was changing the subject, even though the airport was the reason every payment had stopped. He demanded 1 more month. I refused. Karen then called Barbara and asked her to make me reasonable. Barbara later told me that my mother described the cancellation as David's bad attempt at humor and my response as financial punishment. Barbara refused to intervene. "David created the problem," she told Karen. "Natalie is not taking your money. She is stopping gifts." Within days, relatives began contacting me. One cousin asked why I had exploded over a missed flight. An uncle said family disagreement should not interfere with education. Someone else claimed I canceled Karen's birthday trip without warning. Barbara sent screenshots from a family chat I was not part of. David had written that I suffered an emotional outburst after a ticketing mistake and was now using money to control everyone. Karen said she feared I was not myself. Jason claimed I had sabotaged his independent future. Amanda did not correct any of them. I realized they were preparing to isolate me socially before I could tell the truth. I did not send a furious reply. I wrote a timeline for myself, attached the airline evidence, and kept it private. That Friday, David announced a family dinner at a restaurant in Tacoma to settle the matter once and for all. He said everyone would bring the relevant bills so we could make a responsible plan. I agreed to attend under one condition. Barbara would be there. David waited nearly an hour before replying. "Fine." By then, I understood the dinner was not designed to hear me. It was designed to surround me, present 4 emergencies at once, and make refusal look cruel. I went anyway, because this time they would not be able to rewrite the room after I left. The following Sunday, Barbara and I entered the restaurant together. David had reserved a private room at a waterfront grill in Tacoma. Karen, Jason, and Amanda were already seated. "Let's agree the airport lesson went too far," he began. "Nobody expected Natalie to react this dramatically." He said the cancellation had been a harmless lesson about respect. He said I had embarrassed the family by canceling Karen's birthday arrangements. Karen spoke next. She described the lost rental house, the miserable airport hotel, and the return flight. She never mentioned me standing alone at the kiosk. Amanda slid printed tuition information toward me. "My graduation may be delayed," she said. Jason displayed supplier estimates and photographs of the service van. He asked me to honor my original commitment because he had already contacted weekend markets. David placed the truck notice and the county property tax schedule in the center of the table. Nobody asked what I needed. Nobody asked what they could do to repair the relationship. I took out my phone and read David's message aloud. "Walk home." He frowned. Words spoken in anger should not determine a family's future. "When did you become angry?" I asked. "You canceled the ticket before you dropped me off. You chose a separate entrance so you could leave before I reached the kiosk. That was planning, not anger." Barbara said, "He told me about the plan 2 days before the trip." David claimed he had only been venting, but Barbara repeated what he had told her. He intended to exclude me from the flight because I refused to guarantee his loan. He believed a few hours of panic would remind me that family acceptance mattered more than financial caution. He also expected me to buy another ticket, arrive later, and continue paying for everything. Karen admitted she knew there would be a lesson. She believed I would purchase another seat and meet them in California. You knew I had already reimbursed him for my ticket, I said. She looked down. Jason admitted David promised everyone I would cool off before landing. Amanda said she believed him because I always forgave the family. They had not expected me to be unaffected. They had expected me to be hurt temporarily and useful permanently. I opened my folder. I explained that the ledger was not an invoice. I was not asking anyone to repay gifts or attaching interest to kindness. The document existed because David had told relatives that he carried the family while I contributed only when it suited me. The dates showed something different. For years, my support covered predictable expenses, emergency gaps, and plans that benefited everyone except me. The airport incident did not erase those gifts, but it ended the assumption behind them. I wanted everyone at the table to see that my decision was not sudden or based on one delayed vacation. It was a response to a pattern they had admitted. It listed tuition payments, truck transfers, tax installments, emergency repairs, insurance deductibles, travel costs, and the business deposit. I had not prepared it to demand repayment. I prepared it because the family had begun rewriting my help. David recovered first. So, you have been keeping score against your own family. No, I said. I started documenting when you started rewriting. He accused me of using numbers to make him look weak. I reminded him that he had told relatives he financed most family expenses. His face tightened. Keep this up, and you will not be welcome at family gatherings. You already used belonging as leverage at the airport, I said. It no longer works. I placed copies of the canceled payment notices beside the bills. The decisions were final. I would not resume the truck transfer, tuition payment, tax gifts, or business funding. I would not negotiate under pressure. Barbara stood when I did. Outside, Amanda followed us into the parking lot. She asked me to separate her tuition from everything else because her career should not be sacrificed for David's mistake. You made your own decision, I said. You knew the plan and boarded. I gave her the printed page containing the college financial aid office, 3 local scholarships, a hospital tuition assistance program, and the application dates. I had researched them because I did not want her trapped. Amanda glanced at the page. These applications require essays, income forms, and supervisor recommendations. Yes. I do not have time for all that. She did not want help becoming independent. She wanted my money because it required no effort from her. Barbara and I left. Later that night, Jason sent a message. Dad says if you do not reverse this, he is coming to your office. He thinks you will listen when your coworkers can see what kind of daughter you are. I saved the message, forwarded it to building security, and understood that the next confrontation would not stay inside the family. On Tuesday morning, office security called before David reached the elevator. Jason's warning had given me time to send photographs, names, and a copy of his message to the building manager. David and Karen had told the receptionist there was a family emergency. I agreed to meet them in the lobby with a security officer nearby. David began before I reached the seating area. He demanded that I resume the box truck transfer that day. That is a business problem, I said. It is not an emergency involving me. Karen said the county installment plan could fail and they might lose the house. I reminded her that the next tax deadline was still several weeks away. They had time to reduce expenses, sell unused property, or speak with the county again. David accused me of humiliating them in public. You came to my workplace, I said. You created the public scene. He did not threaten me. I asked them to leave. David said he would leave when I agreed to 1 truck payment and 1 tax installment. The officer remained calm, but the lobby was busy. Employees from several companies passed, while David argued that my salary made his demand reasonable. A colleague from underwriting witnessed enough to understand that the emergency involved money. She said nothing afterward, yet I spent the morning wondering which fragments would travel through the office. That was precisely why David had come. He believed professional embarrassment would make refusal more expensive than surrender. The security officer stepped closer and repeated my request. Both were escorted outside. Another coworker from underwriting had witnessed the final minute. By lunchtime, David had told relatives that I had my own parents removed from a building while they begged for help. By evening, the story had become that I used building security against them. Barbara corrected selected relatives with the airline screenshots and Jason's warning. She showed them that David had planned the exclusion and then planned the workplace visit. The family split into camps. The pressure also exposed how carefully my parents managed the family narrative. Snorts. Relatives who had praised David for supporting everyone were surprised to learn that I funded the truck, taxes, tuition, and trip. Some apologized for contacting me. Others insisted the source of the money did not matter because family should share. I answered none of those arguments. The evidence was available, and I would not turn my private life into a continuing public trial. Some relatives argued that Amanda's delayed graduation made my decision cruel. Others asked why David canceled a ticket I had reimbursed and expected me to finance the trip afterward. I stopped defending myself one person at a time. I sent one factual statement to the family group. My airline ticket was deliberately canceled as punishment for refusing to guarantee a business loan. I ended voluntary payments made from my own accounts. I have taken no money from anyone. I will not discuss private finances further. Jason's supplier released the reserved service van and equipment when he could not produce the remaining funds. Instead of reducing the launch or seeking partners, he posted that a jealous relative had destroyed his small business dream. He did not name my employer or direct anyone to contact me, but everyone in our extended family knew whom he meant. Amanda completed federal student aid forms. She added weekend shifts at a rehabilitation center. She told me the extra work was destroying her final semester. I said I understood the pressure, but I would not resume tuition payments. David returned to the company truck. He began renting equipment and vehicles only for jobs that required them. His profit margin dropped, and he declined 2 distant projects, but the business did not collapse. Karen increased her hours as an optometry office coordinator. My parents canceled streaming services, sold a recreational trailer, postponed a kitchen renovation, and stopped eating out. Their hardship was not poverty created by me. It was the discomfort of living within their actual income after years of relying on quiet contributions they rarely acknowledged. Karen began sending friendly messages. She attached childhood photographs, recipes, and memories from family vacations. She never wrote, "We plan to hurt you." She never wrote, "We were wrong." She never asked what repairing trust would require. The messages were nostalgia used as a bridge back to payments. I did not respond. 3 weeks later, David announced a replacement birthday dinner for Karen. He told relatives that I had agreed to attend and that the family would finally reconcile. Several people messaged me saying they were relieved I had come to my senses. I had never agreed to anything. The lie was not only about attendance. Barbara learned that David was telling guests I would apologize publicly and restore every payment after dinner. I could ignore the event and let his version harden, or I could walk into another room he had arranged and correct it once. Then an uncle texted, "Proud of you for fixing what you caused." That message changed my mind. A month later, Karen's replacement birthday dinner became the family's final attempt to corner me. Barbara learned that David told invited relatives I would apologize, restore the payments, and reunite the family. I planned to stay away until I realized silence would become another invented promise. I arrived with Barbara and carried one sealed folder. David met us near the entrance of a rented banquet room. He turned toward the guests. "Here she is," he announced, "the daughter who finally came to her senses." People applauded. I remained standing. "Before dinner starts, I need to correct that. I have not apologized for ending my payments, and I have not restored any of them." David's smile disappeared. "You came here to ruin another birthday." "I came because you told people I made promises I never made." David began accusing me of choosing money over family. I asked Barbara to repeat what he had told her before the airport trip. She did. She confirmed that David planned to cancel my ticket as punishment for refusing to guarantee his expansion loan. He expected me to panic, purchase another ticket, and continue funding the vacation. Then Karen admitted her part. "I wanted you to feel dependent on the family for once," she said. "You walk around acting like you never need anybody." That sentence was the truth beneath every softer explanation. Karen's confession affected relatives more than the financial documents. Until that moment, some believed David acted impulsively, and everyone else followed without understanding. Her words removed that excuse. She had wanted dependence, not closeness. She had watched me finance her celebration while helping design a situation meant to make me afraid of losing the family. The contradiction was visible, and no story about a harmless prank could hide it. My parents deliberately tried to make the person supporting them feel powerless. They wanted me to experience exclusion, then buy my way back into the same group that had excluded me. Amanda said she had apologized privately. I asked when she admitted it happened only after the tuition payment stopped. "It makes the purpose clear," I said. Jason argued that everyone makes mistakes. "Laughing at a planned humiliation was not an accident," I said. "Was it a mistake, or was it a decision you expected to have no consequences?" David said family support should never be conditional. I answered that voluntary financial help was not a lifetime contract. No one had been entitled to my income before the airport, and no one became entitled afterward because losing it was inconvenient. I opened the folder. The first document ended every recurring contribution. The second barred workplace visits and contact. The next pages contained the airline cancellation, my payment receipt, the walk-home text, Jason's warning, and copies of David's misleading statements to relatives. The final page established no contact by calls, visits, or social media. I explained that the boundary was not a negotiation tactic. It did not expire when the truck was returned, the tax installment was paid, or Amanda graduated. My workplace was not a stage for family pressure, and relatives were not delivery systems for David's demands. The email address existed only so administrative matters could be resolved without reopening personal access. I had checked every account before writing the notice. Nothing remained jointly owned, guaranteed, or legally connected. Any necessary communication had to arrive through one email address and concern outstanding documents only. David stared at the papers. "Then you are no longer my daughter. You have been using belonging as a threat since the first dinner," I said. "It does not carry power anymore." Several relatives tried to mediate. I refused. Mediation required both sides to acknowledge what happened, and David was still calling a planned punishment a joke. David reached for the folder, but Barbara held it and told him to leave the documents there so everyone could understand what my family had demanded. Amanda asked whether I would at least attend her graduation. I said attendance would not become another bargaining tool and gave no promise. Jason demanded repayment for expenses he had incurred preparing his bicycle business. You chose those expenses, I said. I never signed a partnership agreement, never owned part of the business, and never guaranteed its launch. Arguments broke out across the room. Some relatives blamed David. Karen began crying and said nobody cared that this was supposed to be her birthday. Barbara and I left before the cake. Outside, Karen followed us and asked for one final private conversation. I agreed to listen for 2 minutes. Karen said she missed me. She said the photographs she sent were not manipulation. She said David's pride had made everything worse and that she had been caught between her husband and her daughter. Then she asked whether I could pay the next property tax installment just this once. I looked at the woman who had admitted wanting me powerless and understood that even her final private appeal was a request for money. No, I said. I walked away with Barbara while arguments continued behind the banquet room doors. The celebration had been advertised as reconciliation, but when the performance failed, every demand remained exactly where it had always been, aimed at my accounts, my silence, and my obedience. After the birthday dinner, I stopped responding to anything that did not arrive through the agreed email address. I blocked personal numbers and social accounts while saving the security report and messages. David sent requests through relatives. I did not answer. Barbara respected the boundary and refused to become a permanent messenger. None of these outcomes happened because I seized assets or interfered with contracts. David still owned his company. Karen still owned her home. Amanda remained enrolled, and Jason remained free to build a business. The difference was that each plan now had to survive without treating my salary as invisible family property. That distinction mattered whenever relatives described me as destructive. I had not created their obligations. I had stopped volunteering to absorb them after they proved they could separate my money from my dignity. David operated Bennett Sign Systems with one fewer vehicle. He declined distant installations because short-term truck and equipment rentals made them unprofitable. He laid off one seasonal worker rather than expanding. He abandoned the high-interest loan he had wanted me to guarantee. The company survived on a smaller scale. He could no longer describe expansion as something my credit was obligated to create. His reputation within the family changed. Several relatives questioned expenses David had previously claimed he paid. He eventually admitted that I had funded the truck, part of the property tax plan, Amanda's tuition, and most of Karen's trip. Karen increased her hours at the optometry office. She lost the lifestyle my quiet assistant supported and my emotional labor with it. Her repeated claim that the family had made one joke sounded less convincing after the planning was exposed. I also learned how much work I had performed beyond writing checks. I had tracked deadlines, compared loan terms, called county offices, reviewed supplier agreements, and reassured everyone whenever their plans became uncertain. Once I stepped away, they lost a manager, researcher, emergency fund, and emotional buffer at the same time. Karen complained that the family felt disorganized without me. That was not evidence that I belonged back in the role. It was evidence that they had depended on labor they rarely noticed and never respected. Distance did not make facts kinder, but it made them impossible for me to ignore. Amanda took the student loan and worked weekend shifts. Her graduation was delayed one semester. She eventually completed the respiratory therapy program through her own effort. She mailed me a graduation announcement without an apology. I placed it in a drawer and did not attend. Still, she had known the purpose, accepted the trip, stayed silent while relatives blamed me, and apologized only after losing tuition. Jason lost the original van and equipment reservation. He could not launch the mobile bicycle repair business on his preferred schedule, so he continued working at a sporting goods store. Months later, he began serving local weekend markets with rented tools and a borrowed cargo trailer. The smaller version was funded by his own earnings. He stopped listing my money as part of his business plan. Our relationship remained severed. Barbara maintained a separate relationship with me. She never asked me to forgive, never carried surprise messages, and never treated family loyalty as a duty to stay silent about deliberate mistreatment. We met for coffee, visited bookstores, and spent holidays together. 4 months after the airport incident, building management called through my apartment intercom. David was standing on the public sidewalk outside. I used the intercom rather than going downstairs. "The family has suffered enough," he said. He described the consequences as punishment I had imposed, rather than expenses he had become responsible for. I asked one question. "Knowing what it cost you, would you cancel my ticket again?" "I would handle it differently." "That is not what I asked." He promised a private talk, yet still would not call the act wrong. He invited me to Sunday dinner that evening. I refused. "You may regret having nobody when you need help." "Needing support is different from accepting disrespect," I said. I told him not to return. Building management approached him, and he left. The next week, I changed my emergency contact from Karen to Barbara. I updated estate documents and removed informal family authorizations. Then I sent one final written notice stating that the personal relationship was over. I did not demand repayment. I did not offer a future date for reconciliation. Months later, I took the trip to the California coast alone. I booked a smaller Monterey waterfront hotel and chose every activity myself. The memory of Seattle's airline kiosk returned, but I did not describe the moment as forgiveness. The most important consequence was never the vacation or lost funding. My family believed my place among them depended on what I paid. By withdrawing from that arrangement, I lost the role they assigned me and recovered control over my life. My father thought canceling one ticket would remind me that I needed my family. Instead, it showed me exactly what they needed from me. I never restored the payments. I never returned to Sunday dinner. And I never answered another request disguised as an apology. They told me to walk home, so I did. I just chose a home where none of them had a key.